Welcome to Vivid Box HQ. 6 cables cut in 6 days. NATO launching its first infrastructure defense mission. But hybrid warfare is a game military weapons can't win. December 26, 2024. Finnish police board a Russian-linked oil tanker called the Eagle S off the southern coast of Finland. They have a theory. The crew dragged the ship's anchor along the seabed for miles, slicing through a 170-kilometer power cable called S-Link 2 that carries electricity from Finland to Estonia. Estonia's power supply drops in an instant. The Finns don't think this was an accident. Within weeks, NATO will launch its first-ever mission dedicated entirely to defending the cables and pipes that sit on the Baltic seabed. It's called Baltic Sentry, and it's an admission that the alliance, for all its tanks and fighter jets, was caught off guard by a tanker with a heavy anchor. The Eagle S marked the moment a pattern finally clicked into view. Russia, analysts say, has been quietly testing what it can break in Europe without firing a single bullet. Cables, pipelines, power links, the invisible infrastructure your phone and your bank account both depend on. By mid-2026, those tests look less like sabotage and more like a strategy. So what does NATO actually do when a tanker becomes a weapon? And how thin is the line between this and a real war? The Eagle S wasn't the first. Look at the timeline. October 2023. The Baltic connector gas pipe ruptures between Finland and Estonia. November 2024. Cables between Sweden and Lithuania go dark. December 2024. S-Link 2, then a Latvia to Gotland line. Both cut within days. By early 2026, 6 cables severed in 6 days. Each incident bolder than the last. So who is actually behind the pattern? That alarm was earned. 6 cables in 6 days looks like a coordinated tactic, and the tool is sitting in plain sight. Russia's Shadow Fleet. These are aging civilian tankers, often flagged to small countries, that Moscow uses to keep selling oil despite Western sanctions. But they are doing a second job too. The Eagle S, the ship Finland seized in December 2024, was officially carrying gasoline from a Russian port to Egypt. Off the record, Finnish prosecutors say its officers dragged an anchor for dozens of miles, ripping up S-Link 2 and several telecoms cables on the same stretch of seabed. Then, in April 2025, Estonia seized another one. A tanker called the Koala, flying no flag at all, registered in Djibouti, headed for the Russian port of Ust-Luga. The Estonian Prime Minister, Kristen Michal, accused it openly. Shadow Fleet, full stop. That's the genius of the design. A civilian ship with dodgy paperwork and a flag of convenience. If something gets cut, Moscow shrugs. Plausible deniability. You can't shoot a freighter. You can't trigger Article 5 over an anchor. And that's exactly the seam Russia keeps poking. So why are these cables such a perfect target? The answer is on the ocean floor, in fiber thinner than a garden hose. Roughly 3/4 of all undersea cables in the Northern Hemisphere pass through Irish waters alone. Cut the right ones, and you don't just slow down YouTube, you cripple transatlantic banking and military communications at the same time. The numbers are staggering. Between 2013 and 2024, the world's subsea cable network grew from 1.5 million kilometers of route to 2.7 million. Almost everything you do online, a video call to your sister, a card swipe at the corner shop, rides those threads. And the dependency is brutally uneven. In Nigeria, more than 95% of internet traffic moves over undersea cable. Cut one in the wrong place, and a nation of 230 million people goes effectively offline. Now here's the cruel twist analysts keep pointing out. Around 90% of cable damage worldwide is genuinely accidental. Fishing trawlers and dropped anchors, which makes sabotage almost impossible to prove. A vessel dragging an anchor over a cable looks identical, on paper, to a careless captain. To Moscow, that ambiguity is the whole point. If you can't prove it was deliberate, you can't punish it. And so the attacks keep coming. The question is whether NATO can stop them. Knowing the target explains the method. A cable gets cut. NATO asks, does this clear the bar for Article 5? Almost always, the answer is no. Treaty rules treat sabotage in international waters as a crime, not an act of war. So the military can't respond. Meanwhile, the damage is already done. Power lost, traffic rerouted, money spent. That's the gray zone trap. You bleed quietly, and nobody can punch back. Bleeding without punching back is unsustainable. So in January 2025, NATO launched Baltic Sentry, frigates, surveillance aircraft, and something genuinely new, a small fleet of underwater naval drones designed to patrol the seabed itself. The idea was to flood the Baltic with sensors and uniforms, so any ship even thinking about lingering over a cable would get a warning shot from a radio, or a NATO frigate appearing on its horizon. On paper, it's the right answer. In practice, it's a needle in a haystack. The Baltic is one of the busiest waterways on Earth. Container ships, ferries, fishing boats, cruise liners, thousands of vessels every single day, every one of them with an innocent-sounding reason to be near a cable. Identifying sabotage before it happens, NATO officers admit privately, is close to impossible, and the math doesn't get better. Russia's shadow fleet is estimated at hundreds of vessels. NATO can patrol maybe a dozen at a time. Even with drones, the alliance is playing whack-a-mole at sea, chasing yesterday's incident while tomorrow's is already being planned. But there's another reason Moscow is pushing so hard right now. Finland just changed the map. April 2023, Finland joins NATO. A year later, Sweden follows, and the Baltic Sea, almost overnight, becomes a NATO lake. Look at a map and the shift hits you immediately. Russia now shares a NATO land border that runs from the Baltic coast all the way up above the Arctic Circle. That puts alliance forces within striking distance of the Russian Northern Fleet, the home base of much of Moscow's nuclear submarine force. For NATO, this is enormous. For the Kremlin, it's a disaster. Finland's defense spending is now sitting at 2.3% of GDP and climbing. The country shut its entire land border with Russia in December 2023, after Moscow started funneling migrants across to pressure Helsinki. By early 2025, the Baltic states had pulled their power grids off Russia's network entirely, ending a Soviet-era dependency that had given Moscow real leverage. Every one of these moves is exactly what Russia spent decades trying to prevent. And all of it happened in roughly 24 months. So picture yourself in the Kremlin, conventional options shrinking by the month. You reach for something that can hurt Helsinki and Stockholm without triggering a NATO response. Something cheap and deniable. Something like an anchor. Russia found its weapon. It didn't keep it to itself. November 2024, a Chinese-flagged cargo ship called the Yi Peng 3 is boarded in the Baltic, weeks after two cables in the same waters go dark. Beijing refuses to let Western investigators on board for over a month. The ship eventually sails away without anyone ever being charged. That's the moment a lot of European officials stopped seeing this as a Russia-only problem. If China is willing to play in the same gray zone, or even just rent out the technique, the playbook has gone international. Suddenly, the Baltic looks like a rehearsal stage for something bigger. Analysts in Brussels and Washington see the implications clearly. The same trick works in the Red Sea and in the Irish waters that carry 3/4 of transatlantic data. Every time one of these incidents passes without consequence, the bar for the next one drops a little lower. There's a phrase NATO planners have started using: escalation without escalation. Damage that builds up, week by week, ship by ship, until one day a cable cut hits something that does cross the line. A hospital cooling system, a defense network running live operations. Then what? That's the question no one in NATO wants to answer out loud. Because the honest answer is, nobody knows where the threshold sits. Article 5 was written for tanks rolling over a border. It says nothing about an anchor dragging across a fiber optic line on the seabed. The damage so far has been manageable. Estonia rerouted power. Finland built a new transmission line called Aurora and opened it in April 2025. The Baltic states unhooked from Russia's grid entirely. Each incident, taken alone, looked like something Europe could absorb. Each incident, taken together, has trained an entire generation of military planners to expect more. So here is what the evidence on the seabed actually adds up to. Russia found a way to attack NATO without attacking NATO, using civilian ships as weapons and betting that Europe would absorb the damage rather than escalate. So far, the bet has worked. China is watching. The shadow fleet keeps sailing, and every cable cut nudges the threshold a little further from where it should be. The next one might be the one that crosses it, and when it does, no one in Helsinki or Brussels will be able to say they weren't warned. This is a story of infrastructure under siege, alliance boundaries being tested, and the cost of staying silent. Thanks for watching. If this escalating pattern concerns you, please like, share, and subscribe for more geopolitical deep dives. See you tomorrow.